speaking of colleagues who have been outstanding voices on job creation, job retention, we know that Ohio has been in the news lately, and we have one of those voices from Ohio serving in the Democratic caucus, one whom I am very proud to know and work with. Representative Tim Ryan, representing communities like Youngstown and Akron, has been a very powerful force in acknowledging that it's investing in job creation that is our #1 concern right now. We've seen what's been happening in Ohio. There's an outburst of pride coming from that state about the activism that is really speaking to empowering the middle class. And we empower the middle class by providing jobs. Representative Ryan, thank you so very much for being that outstanding voice.
Well, thank you, and I think thank the gentleman, and he hit the nail right on the head when he was articulating the kind of things, whether in New York or Ohio, anywhere in the country, really what the essence is, and that's resuscitating manufacturing back in the United States. And that needs to be a goal throughout the country because of what it does for the local economy, what it does for the states, what it does for tax revenue, what it does to the creation of intellectual property, because there are many people on the factory floor actually thinking about how this product can maybe be made differently, manufactured differently, how value could be added to it. It's very important. But what it's going to take, in part, and what's been happening in Ohio, is a coalition, I believe, of working class people, of small business people who recognize that we have to make investments into our states and into our country. And what happened in Ohio last week with a referendum that was trying to dismantle the bargaining rights of public employees, police, fire, teachers, the very people that we need to protect our communities so that we can have good, strong, vibrant small businesses, the very people who are educating our kids and our students who are eventually going to go into these businesses, were under attack. The upside to this whole thing is that a coalition formed in Ohio, a coalition of working class people who get educated, get trained, have master's degrees, protect us, go into burning buildings. We call them when we get in trouble. They deal with all of the societal problems that go into their classroom, but they are committed to educating our young people. 82 out of 88 counties in Ohio helped beat back this attack. And with over 61% of the vote in Ohio, beat back this attack. And the real upside to this whole thing is that a lot of people who are in this coalition of police, fire, teachers, public employees, as well as the private sector unions, the auto workers, the steel workers, the plumbers and pipe fitters, the pile drivers and millwrights, and the iron workers and sheet metal workers. There were a lot of these people who used to watch Fox News. They used to watch listen to Rush Limbaugh. They used to listen to Glenn Beck, and they said in story after campaigning for this for months, that they realize what's been happening here. They've realized this assault that's been coming in and funded campaigns from across the country, big money coming in to try to divide the middle class and try to dismantle the agenda. And I believe that this coalition, Mr. Speaker, is an opportunity for us to have the political coalition needed to recognize what investments we have to make back into our country. That's what happened in Ohio. People are recognizing that they've been trying to get us divided. Who's in a union, who's not in a union, who's in a public sector union, who's in a private sector union, who's black, who's white, who's gay, who's straight. Just divide the middle class. Divide the working class. And this coalition came together. And I believe that if we're going to have the kind of investments, if we're going to resuscitate manufacturing in the United States, if we're going to realize that the government certainly can't do everything, but it has to do something. It has to make these investments into engineers and good, solid public schools and community colleges and colleges and Pell Grants so that you can have the workforce available to ignite this kind of economic development that's needed around our country. These are about investments. And to have $2 to $3 trillion in transportation and infrastructure investments that need to get made, we now need a political coalition to say, hey, let's make these investments. Akron, Ohio does not have $1 billion to finance their combined sewer problem. So let's put these building trades workers back to work, which is going to generate revenue for the city of Akron and Youngstown and Cleveland and Pittsburgh and all these others, which is going to increase their coffers, that they will have money to spend on police and fire and teachers and investments back into the community. And then partner with the private sector. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the private sector has got to come in and drive this revolution without a doubt. But it is time for us to make the investments necessary that are going to allow the private sector to come in here and make the private investments that will lead to job creation. And so the bills that we have and that we're offering are an alternative vision. I'll tell one quick story. We were having a conversation one day, a member of Congress and I, one from the other party, talking about investments in the semiconductor industry. And they were down here lobbying, the semiconductor industry was down here lobbying on investments that need to be made. And one of our colleagues said, well, that's why we're giving you tax cuts, so that you guys and your business could make these investments. And the 4 or 5 CEOs said, you don't understand. We're talking about billions of dollars that need to get invested in order for the semiconductor industry to go in and partner and use the technology and the research that has been developed. So it's the government's job to plant the garden, to till the soil, the sunlight, the water, to grow the plants, and then let the private sector come in and pick the fruits and the vegetables that they may need. That's what we've always done in this country. Whether it was military research, NASA, NIH, that's what we did. And that's been a recipe for success for us. So I'm excited about what's going on in Ohio, because I think we finally have the political coalition that is needed to give politicians and leaders in the state and country the backing that they need to push this kind of agenda.
Representative Ryan, what a great coalescing going on in Ohio, and what a statement by the middle class of people of all backgrounds coming together, speaking with one voice based on a common thread of jobs, the dignity of work. Powerful statement, and it all, we should all be motivated and inspired by that outcome. You talked about government's role to plant the garden. Let me just talk about another sector just to associate with that element of agriculture just for a bit here this afternoon. Why such a struggle on this House floor to get the dollars for farmers who were impacted by natural disaster? I saw record flooding in my district. We have wonderfully productive soils in the upstate reaches of New York State. You would think that it wasn't part of some industrial sector, that there wasn't an ag sector in our economy. All they were asking for was to have debris removal dollars, to have farmland restoration, cropland restoration dollars, at a time when we were impacted by the ravages of Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee. Was that too much to ask? Well, I'm happy to see that the push here in this House, coming from those of us who have visited those districts and really pushed the agenda, are able to account for $338.6 million being added so that we can take programs like the Emergency Conservation Program, the Emergency Water Protection Program, and allow for restoration of farmland, debris removal, and all the activities that will drive productivity back to the farm. All they were asking for was a chance to recover from the forces of Mother Nature. And if you can't assist in a situation like that, if it took this tug of war, if it took advocacy, if it took putting a bill in the House to really push everyone to move on behalf of our farmers, I voted against that original package because they said zero additional aid for the ag communities. Unacceptable. So you talk about government planting the garden.